Hi folks, I'm Craig Taylor, and as always a huge thank you for joining me here on my YouTube channel, the Bushcraft Padawan. If you enjoy watching this video, why not click on the subscribe button in this corner of the screen here at any point during the video to catch up on any of my future videos that I release. What's today's video all about then? Well, I've been reading, or rereading should I say, the book Sapiens, which is a history of humankind. It's the second time I've read it, and it's just kind of got me thinking, as it did a year ago when I first read it, about how fluky, for want of a better word, we must have been as a species to get to where we are today. I cannot even begin to think about all of the chance happenings and experiments and serendipitous occurrences along the way that's led to us becoming the species that we are. If I think back to, and I'm perhaps not using the correct terms here, but if I think about to prehistoric terms, who discovered for the first time that striking certain substances against one another led to a spark? Who thought about trying to capture that spark? Who thought about trying to then turn that spark into a flame? Who first discovered that certain plants and animals were edible? What thought processes and what evolution occurred? I guess my answer's there in the word evolution. What evolution occurred to get us thinking about that? Who discovered that rubbing two pieces of wood together would create friction, which in turn could be harnessed and captured and turned into fire? Who discovered that certain rocks, when split in a certain way, created a razor sharp edge, and that edge could be used for fashioning other tools, or for hunting, or for skinning, things like that? And it's in particular that comment that I've just made there about edges and cutting tools that I want to take a little bit of a closer look at in today's video. Whilst I was reading that section of the book, whilst I was thinking about that, I got to thinking about my cutting tools and how they've clearly, even just in my lifetime of bushcrafting, how my tools have evolved, let alone how tools have evolved since that first person realised that splitting a rock in a certain way created a razor sharp cutting edge. So this video is all about my bushcraft cutting tools. When I was thinking about making this video, I was kind of going through in my head about what tools I'd bring out with me, what I would show you, and I kind of realised quite quickly that they fall into pretty much one of three categories. The cutting tools that I would take out with me almost all the time. I'm not going to say all the time, because I'm a firm believer that you can go out and practice bushcraft skills and not have to take a knife or a cutting tool with you. In fact, I spoke about it in this video up here, 7 ways to practice bushcraft on your own doorstep. Do check that video out, got a lot of positive feedback. So the first category are those tools that I take out almost all the time. And then I've got a section of tools and a category of tools that I take out when I need to. They're not my go-to tools, but there are certain occasions when I will take those tools out. And then I've realised I've actually got a category of tools, and it's a growing category, that I probably will never take outdoors as such, maybe as far as my back garden, but they'll never really accompany me on a bushcraft type outing. So those are the three categories of tools that I want to look at. And that first category are the tools that I take out with me, the cutting tools that I take out with me almost all the time. And the first tool is my Mora Garberg Carbon Black. I've had this now for, let's have a think about it. How long have I had this? I've had it since March, April of this year. So getting on for about 6 months or so, something like that. I love this knife. I've used Moras in the past. I started off with a Mora Companion, then a Companion HD. Then I went to a bushcraft store. It was either Grizzly or a Boar. I just didn't get on with that knife, so much so that I actually spoke to the store, and credit where credit's due, they actually allowed me to exchange it for the Garberg Carbon Black that I now have here. I have no problems with this knife. I found that it's easy to sharpen, it's easy to resharpen, it keeps its edge very well indeed. I've found no problems at all with this knife, bar two. One of them is whenever I use this knife for a protracted period of time, the skin, and you can't see it now because it's healed, but the skin, the fleshy part of my hand just underneath my little finger, becomes very blistered and very calloused. I'm not really apportioning that blame to the knife, to be honest. It's due to the handle, yes, but I also think it's largely due to the fact that I have office hands nowadays, so my hands probably aren't conditioned enough. The other slight gripe I have about this, which I don't think is forgivable, is nothing to do with the knife, but it's actually, if you notice, one of the rivets attaching the belt loop to the main part of the knife sheath has actually gone. Now, I don't use this knife a lot. I'm not somebody who is outdoors with a cutting edge, with this cutting edge, day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out. This comes out with me once or twice a month for a day, maybe 2 or 3 at the most. Absolute maximum. So to have found that that's dropped off so quickly is a bit worrying. I don't hump a lot of gear around. I'm not sort of portaging canoes and boxes and heavy packs and things like that. I'm really not. So again, I can't see anything would have caught on this, or nothing should have caught on this that was so excessive it would rip that rivet out. So love the knife. Wasn't until recently, or I was until recently a fan of the sheath. I'm not anymore. That really shouldn't have damaged that quickly, considering the usage that I get out of it. The other cutting tool that I take out with me almost all the time is that staple of many bushcrafters, the Barco Laplander folding saw. I do like this saw. I have no problems with this saw. You'll notice though that the locking mechanism, although that is locked out, doesn't actually lock. There is a problem with the locking mechanisms on this saw, and I can say that with a degree of confidence because I've owned 2 of these a year or 18 months apart. Both of them have had a fault with the locking mechanism. I made a YouTube video about it. I'm posting a link to it just up here, where I talk about how you can very quickly, very cheaply, very easily, takes about 3 minutes of your time, repair that locking mechanism. When I posted it, lots of people responded to that and said, I've had the same problem as well. So I'm confident it's not just my bad luck. There is something of a manufacturing issue with this. Stops it being unlocked, which is a good point. I can't unlock the knife, but you notice when it's locked out, it doesn't actually lock open. So I need to go back and do my magic with the locking mechanism of this knife. Again, check that video that I just posted a link to a few seconds ago. So these are the tools that I would consider taking out with me on almost every outing that I go on. My Mora Garberg Carbon and my Barco Laplander folding saw. Next up, let's look at the cutting tools, the bushcraft cutting tools that I would take out with me on occasions, depending on what I'm planning to do, depending upon what I hope to get out of the outing, depending on what time of year it is as well. So the first thing is what looks like a garbled pile of wood and cordage there. This is actually a folding book saw that I'm very proud to say my dad made out of mahogany. Yes, no cheapskates here at Taylor Towers. This is made out of mahogany. It's actually made out of an old school science bench, an old lab bench, which was made of mahogany. My dad actually got hold of one and made this for me. Doesn't look particularly impressive at the second, but if you'll give me just a second, I'll put this together and you'll see what all the fuss is about. There we have it. There's the assembled product. That took me about, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes off camera at the most to assemble into that folding book saw that we have here, and clearly you can see the action would be sawing like that. Very, very impressed with this. It's made of mahogany, which would immediately make me think, wow, that's going to be heavy. It really isn't heavy, to be perfectly honest, considering the power that you can get behind this, considering just how much wood you can process and how quickly, and considering that when it's folded down, it really doesn't take up a great deal of space at all down the side of a rucksack or strapped to the outside. Not a great deal of space at all. I would not take this out on every trip that I go on. I would take this out when I'm anticipating having to cut a lot of wood. In my case, it's probably for firewood. So I envisage taking this out if I'm planning to do a lot of cooking and/or it's winter time and I'm going to need a lot of wood because the nights are longer, they're colder, and I want to have a fire to sit around. So that's my folding book saw. Thanks ever so much, Dad, really appreciated. I haven't used this as much as I really shoulda, woulda, coulda have done. I plan to change that this year and certainly get this out cutting even more than I did last year. The other tool that I would take out, not all the time to accompany the buck saw or vice versa, I wouldn't always take the buck saw out just because I was carrying this tool, would be my Hunter 4 Classic hunting axe. There you go. I wouldn't always take this out with me, to be perfectly honest. I would take it out once again if I'm expecting to be chopping trees down, sectioning trees, limbing trees, splitting firewood down. So again, naturally lends itself for my use cases to the winter months. Although, I'll be honest, I have also taken this out in the summer months when I've intended to do a lot of cooking and have needed a lot of firewood. I've also been using it quite recently as a partial replacement for my knife. Not for doing the ultra fine work, but I'm just trying to get more and more competent with using the axe, not just for the heavy stuff, but also for the finer stuff. And indeed, I've been out recently and almost completely fashioned a bow drill set. In fact, I'll link to the video up here. Almost completely fashioned a bow drill set from a piece of wood in the round, just using my axe. So you can see the logic there between carrying this and also carrying it along with the folding buck saw. This will help me to take the trees down and butcher them into lengths, and then the cutting saw will allow me to process those lengths down into more manageable lengths, and then of course the axe, I can split them down into, you know, right down to kindling size. So a combination of the two, incredibly useful. You can see now why I don't carry them all the time, because unless I'm needing to or wanting to chop down trees and prepare a lot of wood, they're really just dead weight otherwise in my kit. So that's the kit that I carry with me on occasions, depending on what it is I'm planning to do. The Hunter 4 Classic hunting axe and my dad's version of the folding buck saw there. Now that brings me nicely on to my third category of what I'm calling my bushcraft cutting tools. And some of you may disagree with me bringing these tools into that term. These are tools that I would rarely, if ever, actually take out into the woods with me, or if I did, it would be for very, very specific reasons on very specific occasions. They wouldn't become part of my natural carry. They wouldn't be part of my wintertime carry like the folding buck saw and the axe. These are tools that I would put into the stay-at-home bushcraft category, and they're all tools that will help me to carve wood. The first tool up is a very new, this hasn't actually been used in anger yet, I'll be really honest, it arrived 3 or 4 days ago, but it's a Robin Wood Wood Tools carving axe. There, haven't actually used it in anger, very much looking forward to doing so. I had been using my Hunter 4 Classic hunting axe for carving, and you know what, to be perfectly honest, I was very impressed with just how delicate I could use that axe in a way to help me carve. I used it on the Woodcrafter course with Frontier Bushcraft and Paul Kirtley. I've used it at home. Certainly helps to reduce the amount of knife work that's needed by using the axe. There were times though when I really screwed things up because it is bigger, it is more cumbersome, it is more hefty, it does require more effort to hold it and to wield it. So I thought to myself, you know what, if I'm serious about this wood carving or would like to get serious, why don't I invest in a purpose-built, you can see the size of that there compared to the Hunter 4s, can choke up nice and tight on the axe head there. So I think I consider that would fall into the bushcraft cutting tools category, but you can perhaps understand now why this isn't something that I would probably take out into the woods with me. I'd probably go out in the woods, get some wood for carving with, and then bring it home. So that's the first piece of kit that I think falls into that category. The next piece, unsurprisingly, is also related to wood carving as well, and it is a Mora 120 carving knife there. I've had this for some time now, I've had this for a year, 18 months, maybe 2 years. Enjoyed using it. I must admit, it's only been recently that I've been confident enough to really allow this to do more of my work for me. I'm starting to enjoy not sanding my spoons and spatulas, but actually using the knife to do most of the finishing cuts with it. I'm not quite there yet. I'm not going to say that I don't use the Abranet sandpaper at all, but I'm getting much more confident with using this, and I certainly enjoy using this. Again, you can probably see why that stays at home along with my carving axe, because the two naturally kind of gel together. And then the final tool that I leave at home, and for those of you that are wood carvers and spoon carvers in particular, you probably know what's going to be brought out next, but it is my Robin Wood curved knife, hook knife, spoon carving knife, whatever you want to call it, there. Again, that stays at home, because why would I take that out if I'm not taking the Mora 120 out? Why would I take that out if I'm not taking out the carving axe? Again, I do most of my carving at home, where I have the time and the resources and that, you know, that luxury of being able to do it at home rather than being out in the woods doing it. So that's why I tend to leave this curved carving knife along with my Mora 120 and along with my Robin Wood Wood Tools carving axe. I think they very definitely fall into the bushcraft cutting tools category, but for my use case and my situations, and they may differ to yours, I rarely take these out, so they tend to be in the left at home, rarely if ever taken out category. So there we have an insight into the bushcraft cutting tools that I use today as of the end of September 2018. They've changed in the past year. If I review what I've done in a year's time, I may have moved on and be using something else in the next year. But as it stands at this moment in time, they're what I'm using. Also, I hope you understand why I've perhaps grouped them into certain categories. Almost always carry on occasions, rarely if ever take out into the woods with me. But what about you? How do your cutting tools differ? How do you categorize them, if indeed you categorize them at all? Do you carry the same things as I do? Do you carry similar tools? Do you use similar tools as I do? Do you carry everything with you all the time, just in case? And of course, that's absolutely cool. This most definitely isn't the right way or the only way of doing things. It's my way that I'm doing at the moment, that I'm practicing at the moment. How are yours similar? How is your practice? How are your cutting tools? How are your categories of cutting tools similar or different to mine? Please do let us all know in the comments below. It'll be quite interesting, I think, to see how people categorize things differently, where the similarities are, where the differences are. Thank you, as always, for watching. Throughout the video, there's been that subscribe button in the bottom corner of the screen here. If you're not yet a subscriber, please do think about clicking on it. If you've enjoyed watching this video, you think somebody else would benefit from it, then please do use that share button. You know where it is, whether you're on Twitter or Facebook or on YouTube or on Reddit. Wherever you're watching this video, please do consider sharing it. Thanks as always for watching. I'll see you next time. Cheers.